Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Right on. Here we are. Here we go. The same thing. It's the same thing over and over again. What do? We have to get up here, and we all have to get busy defending something because the left is on the march. Rinse and repeat. 30 years it's been like this. 29 years. Left gets on a tear, gets on a roll, and you got to stand up and defend and point out how they're lying about everything. They're constantly marching forward on their agenda. But I'll tell you something, folks. As I look at these leftists and media people and Democrats, as I listen to them talk about gun control in the aftermath of the Las Vegas massacre, I am seeing no innovation. I'm seeing nothing but old talking points, rehashed fear tactics and so forth, but no innovation. Nothing new from these people. They are not modernized. They have not adapted. Now, there's a downside to that. The downside is that they're consistent and that their message is consistent, and therefore people have heard it so many damn times that each incident comes along and they get to add on or pile on, and people, nod their heads maybe. But on the other hand, the fact that they're not innovating in their attempts to move their agenda offers additional opportunity to stop them and oppose it, at least as far as I'm concerned. Greetings. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, again, standing up for America and defending her against the never-ending assault and corruption of the left. 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. We're now into that area now where facts do not matter. They never matter to the left. But the danger is that the whole thing has become an emotional issue. You can't blame people for reacting to this emotionally. But reacting to it emotionally and dealing with it emotionally are two different things. And the left wants to continue dealing with everything emotionally so that facts and reality can be ignored. There's an additional aspect of this. Now that the media, the drive-bys, and the rest of the Democrats are sure that the Vegas shooter was not an Islamic terrorist, they are taking off the gloves. I mean, they are with reckless abandon moving forward. They were holding back a little bit, waiting for confirmation the guy was not a militant Islamic terrorist. If he had been a jihadist, the drive-bys would be preaching to us about how we must not blame all Muslims and how we must guard against the backlash against Muslims. But since he was just a regular old, maybe wealthy gun owner, all bets are off. The media are now telling us that all gun owners to blame, and the NRA is to blame, and Trump is to blame, and the Republican Party is to blame, and anybody that doesn't think ill of guns is to blame. Grab Soundbite 26 just to buttress this. Here's Catherine Herridge this morning on what's happening now on Fox. She is chatting with Melissa Francis, who said, okay, so what's the focus right now?
A U.S. government official tells Fox News investigators are doing a full review of Stephen Paddock's travel history. They're drilling down on his financial transactions as well as his personal relationships, looking for unusual activity or a sudden dramatic event that points to motive. ISIS has released a new video this morning tying itself to the attack, though the FBI continues to discount that international terror connection.
So here we are, 36 hours, and we know for sure that there are no Muslims involved, no militant Islamists, no jihad, no nothing, right? Slam dunk. It's not even a question, right? Not even leaving it open. It's done. They are telling us flat out, no militant Islamic terrorism. However, after a full year, they still cannot tell us that Trump did not collude with Russia. Anybody find? We had a caller mention this yesterday, and I've had so many people react to that, saying, gee, I wish I would have thought of that. I must confess, it is a rather brilliant catch that here in less than, 2 days, law enforcement, government agencies can tell us with slam dunk ontological certitude there was no terrorism in this, no militant Islamic terrorism, but even after a year, with no evidence whatsoever, they still claim that the Russians colluded with Trump and vice versa. So since there is officially no connection to Islamic Jihad, the Democrats see a clear road straight ahead. Media are going completely crazy over the idea that the shooter may have used an automatic weapon. Now, for those of you in Rio Linda, you probably know that an automatic weapon is a machine gun. How many people wonder, how many people do you think when they read or hear about this and they keep hearing the reference to automatic gun, automatic weapon, how many of them don't know what it is? It's a machine gun. That's what's, and semi-automatic is not automatic. Now, here's a little interesting factoid that is floating around areas of the media concerned with fact. And that is that legally owned, fully automatic weapons have been used in exactly 3 crimes since 1934. 3. Meaning automatic weapons are not proliferating. Meaning automatic weapons are not. They're not the problem here. The guy is the problem. The shooter is always the problem. The NRA and everybody now under siege, we've got to get rid of automatic weapons. Automatic weapons have only been used 3 times in crime since 1934. They're not the danger that the media and the drive-bys would have you think they are. Now, and they've been illegal since 1934. What is happening now is, and what they think they found some bump stocks among this guy's collection. A bump stock is a modification that turns like an AR-15. It simulates, well, it doesn't simulate, it actually does, but it simulates automatic fire. It is a stock that, for lack of a better way of explaining it, it's almost spring-loaded. And the spring, the recoil, as you fire, the recoil in your shoulder pushes the gun forward, which keeps your finger pressure on the trigger, which makes automatic fire. It isn't automatic, it's simulated automatic fire. At the end of the end of it is firing faster than a human being can manually pull a trigger. But it's modified to do so. And when this was first discovered that the guy was using automatic weapons up there, the reaction was, where? You can't get them. Only the military has these things. They're machine guns. Where did he get them? And they cost through the nose if you do find one. As I say, only 3 used in criminal activity since 1934, since which they've been illegal. And everybody was saying, my God, where'd the guy get one? You just can't walk in the store and buy one. They're illegal. They're very hard to get. But bump stocks are a modification that if you know what you're doing, you can put a bump stock on your weapon and it simulates automatic fire. So now they're looking at bump stocks and thinking, well, and the NRA doesn't defend this stuff. The NRA doesn't defend automatic weapons. The NRA is not out there saying everybody ought to have one. They're not. They don't have a vulnerable position on this. But that doesn't matter because we have long since gone past the fact-based aspect of this. You want to have another little fact? AEI, American Enterprise Institute, has a chart here that records American gun ownership and the American murder rate with guns. Since 1994. Since 1994, gun ownership has increased. Private-owned firearms has increased by 56%. The gun homicide rate has declined since 1994 by 49%, meaning more guns does not mean more murder. More guns has meant less murder. Again, since 1994, the number of privately owned firearms has gone up 56%. I don't have total numbers here, but it doesn't matter for the purposes of this. In that same period, since 1994, gun homicide rate annually has declined 49%. It's almost equal. As the number of guns have increased, privately owned guns have increased, so has the murder rate decreased. But this won't matter. This is like offering them facts to countermand what they believe in climate change. It's automatically discounted, not believed. And they say you're making it up, or it's irrelevant, or you're mixing apples and oranges, or you're a bigot, pervert, pig, what have you. Well, whatever it takes for them not to believe you and do what they can to destroy your credibility. So this is where we are. Once again, the Democrats have an agenda item that they have been salivating over for 40 years or longer, and that is taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding people, because by definition, you can't take guns away from criminals. They're not going to give them up, and if they do, they're just going to restock. So gun control would only get rid of guns among law-abiding people, who by definition are not the problem. But none of this fact-based, none of this logic-based reasoning, in fact, no reasoning at all matters. It will not hold up against the emotional onslaught. Late-night comedians are now practically crying. You know, once Jimmy Kimmel got some fame and notoriety for his expertise in healthcare, all the other late-night comics are trying to get in on the act. And now they all last night became experts on gun control and murder and crying. And it's just part of the onslaught that we are facing now. And there are questions. I'm going to bring this up. When I read about it today, frankly, it had not occurred to me. But there are some people on the Trump side of the aisle who are worried that he might cave to people on this. Do you know why? Because of the deal he made with Chuck and Nancy on the debt ceiling and all that. And he got praised by the New York Times, and he was lauded, and he liked it, so he might do it again, is the fear. I don't know about that. But these people say, look what he's doing on taxes. I mean, he's adopting the populist view of taxes where the rich get soaked and get no relief, and the supposed middle class get all the breaks. Oh, but speaking of that, folks, we'll get to this later in the program, but it seems that some deep diving has occurred into the Republican income tax cut proposal, and it seems that some middle class taxpayers are actually going to get a tax increase. Now, you know why this is. We knew it on day one, and we told you, but it took these yokels a little while to figure it out. It is the elimination of deductibility of state and local taxes that's going to cause a lot of people's taxes to increase, no matter what happens to their income tax rate. That's right, and there are now headlines all over the drive-by media. Republican tax plan contains increases for middle class. Drive-bys love writing that headline. No, the rates aren't going to go up. It's the deductions that they are getting rid of that will effectively result in people paying more dollars. And what are you frowning at me? Do you disagree with my analysis here? Oh, Snurtley is ticked off at that. Well, you knew this when state and local income tax deductibility is gone. No, the mortgage interest, though, no, they're not getting rid of that. The home mortgage interest deduction remains. Now, property tax was originally going to be included in the no more can you deduct it column. But not yet. It survived. But remember, all we have is a proposal. We don't have any debate or votes yet, and we know that whatever is proposed is not going to be the final form that is voted on, if there is ever really a vote. But when they were originally thinking about this, they were originally considering eliminating the property tax deduction along with the state and local income tax deduction. But the property tax deduction survived. State and local tax deduction, income tax, did not. Charitable deductions survive. You'll still be able to deduct whatever you give to charity, yourself not included. You do not get to consider yourself a charity, even though many people think of themselves as one now. Anyway, we have a lot to do. We have stuff left over from yesterday's program I'm going to try to get to as well. Camille Paglia has a great piece, mental block on where the interview was. But I have it. She has, in this interview, it is so great, she has echoed a couple of key things I have opined, things I have said about the male-female relationship, and particularly about women being powerless. I don't know if she knows she's agreeing with me or buttressing me, but she is. I mean, it's fabulous. So there's a lot we want to get to today, including audio sound bites illustrating where the Democrats are on this and what we're up against, as once again the American media and Democrat Party join forces to attack again the Constitution of the United States. Back after this. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh executing assigned host duties flawlessly. Zero mistakes. We now ask a question that we ask every time we go through this exercise. What new law would have stopped Paddock? Somebody tell me. Everything he did is already illegal, including killing people. Everything he did is already illegal. So, somebody tell me what new law would have stopped the shooter. Well, don't waste your time. There isn't an answer. There is no new law that would stop this. There is no new law that would have prevented this. For example, we have laws that say you can't kill other people. You can't kill anybody. If you do it premeditation, if you do it with hate, we're really going to get you, but you can't do it. He killed 59, wounded 500 others. What law can we pass that would have stopped him? Well, maybe security checks at hotels, but that's not a gun control law. I'm asking, what new law on guns could we pass that would have stopped Monsieur Paddock from getting his weapons and firing them? Everything he did is already illegal. The Wynn in Las Vegas is already screening guests. It's already started. It adds, according to the initial reports, 10 minutes to the check-in time to get into the Wynn Las Vegas. You know this is going to happen. But that's not going to satisfy the left. They're not even talking about that. They want they want guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. Anyway, hang in, folks. We resume before you know it here. Let's review what we know here. It'll set some other things up. Mr. Paddock, the Vegas shooter, illegally modified weapons to make them automatic. Used bump stocks. This news, by the way, from anonymous sources. We don't really know for sure, but we'll run with it since it's the latest. A bump stock is hard to describe how it works, but essentially it bumps up against your shoulder. The stock bumps up because of the recoil, and the bump, it's spring-loaded, moves the gun forward. You keep your finger behind the trigger, and the pressure of the gun moving forward hits the trigger, and it simulates automatic fire. It's not a machine gun. You modify other guns to do this. It takes more than the bump stock to be modified, but the bump stock is what uses the recoil to cause pressure to be constant on the trigger. And it simulates automatic fire. The guy spent a ton of money. 19 guns in the room, 12 guns in his Mesquite, Nevada home, ammo out the wazoo. Apparently he was okay financially, but he had much gambling debt. Had cameras deployed so he could monitor law enforcement officers if they observed his position. His hotel suite was perfectly placed, 2 different angles for hitting his targets. That required some scouting, required some setup in advance. I had a couple of people on the phone yesterday we weren't able to get to, but one caller said, "You see how far the windows were? The 2 windows that were broken? That couldn't have been one hotel room. It was a suite. It was probably a high roller suite. The guy spent so much money gambling and lost. He might have even been comped. That might have been a suite for the whales at Mandalay Bay. I'm just guessing, but it's a 2-bedroom suite, so those windows could easily have been one hotel room. I don't know what big deal, 2 rooms or not, but I wanted to address that. So the left's out calling for new gun laws, but there's not a single new law that would have changed what happened. There's not a single new law impacting guns that would have changed what happened. As I said, there have only been 3 mass shootings, 3 crimes since 1934 to have used fully automatic firearms. Think machine gun. The reason for that, it's very hard to get them, and they are expensive. In addition to the expense of the weapon, you have to get a Class 3 federal firearms license and the tax stamps on the weapon, and all of this takes time, a lot of bureaucracy, and a lot of money. The federal tax stamp on a full automatic weapon pre-1986 manufacture is a minimum of $10,000, plus the insurance that you have to cover the theft and possible use of your stolen automatic weapon. These are not things that you find even on eBay. These, if you find them anywhere, they're going to be on the dark web somewhere. We're dealing with an idiot, a nut job, a wacko here, and if one of these people is determined and well-funded, it's difficult to stop. Now, a lot of people still asking about motivation. We don't know. It's still a matter of speculation because nobody talked to the guy beforehand to hear his grievances. But I want to share something I ran across at Intellectual Takeout today. There is, and this is a think piece, and it's just a possibility that somebody is applying to this after having read some philosophy by a noted philosopher by the name of Hannah Arendt, A-R-E-N-D-T. She lived from 1906 to 1975. She was a German-American political theorist. She wrote extensively on totalitarianism, and she predicted, before she died, that modern society would see a surge of domestic violence and social unrest for a specific reason. So I thought that it would be interesting to go back and find out what she predicted. Or better stated, why she predicted it. Again, she was an expert on totalitarianism. She predicted that modern American society would see a surge of domestic violence and social unrest. She is highly reputed, Hannah Arendt. Some people pronounce it Arendt. But she was noted for understanding the power and psychology of violence. She was considered one of the 20th century's greatest thinkers. She escaped Germany during the Holocaust and found refuge in America, where she became a visiting scholar at some of America's finest academic institutions. She was the first female lecturer at Princeton. So here is her theory that she espoused years ago in predicting things like this. And I am quoting Hannah Arendt. The greater the bureaucratization of public life, the greater will be the attraction of violence. In a fully developed bureaucracy, there is nobody left with whom you can argue, to whom one could present grievances, on whom the pressures of power could be exerted. Bureaucracy is the form of government in which everybody is deprived of political freedom, that everybody is deprived of the power to act. For the rule by nobody is not no rule. And where all are equally powerless, we have a tyranny without a tyrant. Let me explain this. As a democracy bureaucratizes, which we have, another name for the bureaucracy would be called the deep state. The bureaucracy is every cabinet-level administration, every government agency you can think of. And believe me, there are more government agencies than any single one person could name from memory. They are many and they are redundant. And what do bureaucracies do? They are like plugging the drain on a bathtub. When you have to deal with a bureaucracy, if you have a grievance, you're not going to get a solution because you get passed up to the next department, to the next supervisor. You never get an answer. You never get a solution because nobody is empowered to make one. A fully fleshed out bureaucracy, the total bureaucratization of a democracy, of a country, leads to average, ordinary Americans having no power whatsoever to address grievance, particularly grievance that has its origins within the state. If Health and Human Services has some stupid rule that penalizes you or your business, there's nowhere you can go to fix it. You can't even go to Health and Human Services. You try it, and it's like everything is the DMV where you never get your license updated. And she theorizes this is going to lead to mounting frustration with unstable people being unable to deal with the lack of action, the lack of solution, the lack of movement, and they're going to go nuts. And she theorized the attraction to violence from frustration will increase because there is nobody in a fully developed bureaucracy, there is nobody with whom you can argue. There's plenty of people to argue with that. What she means by that is you get passed on to the next supervisor. There's never a solution your first phone call, whatever. Very rarely. You get passed up to the next supervisor. Then that supervisor doesn't know why you're calling. You have to brief that supervisor. By the time you do that, well, it's not my department. You get passed on to somebody else. Bureaucratization occurs outside of government, too. Bureaucratization can occur in any business, small or large. In this guy's case, he had a lot of gambling debts. I've never had large gambling debts, so I don't, to a casino or to anybody else. I don't know what would happen if you can't pay them, and if you try to establish some way of dealing with it and you're turned down or refused. I could only speculate and guess, and I really don't like doing that. But I understand the point that Ms. Arendt made here. The failing in this point is that it's still going to require already mentally unstable people to resort to mass murder at the end of their trail of frustration in dealing with the bureaucracy. And by the way, I don't want to get caught in defining bureaucracy narrowly to actually mean a government bureaucracy. What is meant here by the bureaucratization is that in a bureaucracy, how many of you run into this? Nobody seems to have the authority to make a decision without talking to somebody else. And then you go, that's somebody else, and it's the same thing. They don't have the authority to make a decision until they talk to somebody else. And that's what she means by nobody has power. You, as the aggrieved, don't have power. And I'm not talking about left-wing grievance politics here. I'm talking about legitimate beefs that you might have, that you need solutions to, that you can't find because nobody has the authority to deal with you. You get passed on, and everywhere you get passed on, still no authority, until you reach the end of the line where you're told, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Because bureaucracies really don't exist to solve problems. Bureaucracies exist to sustain themselves. Worst thing can happen to a bureaucratic department is for what it's dealing with to be solved. There'll be no reason for the department to exist anymore. Take a brief time out and we will continue. Throwing that in the hopper as a possible explanation. Yours are welcome as well. Sit tight. Back before you know it. Okay, I want to get started on the phones here. Still much to touch on as the program unfolds. This is Richard, Buena Park, California. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Rush, good to talk to you. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about this here, something that nobody else is talking about. This is pure speculation on my part. This is, something that I've, come to conclude. But what if this guy, the shooter, the Vegas attacker, might have been have similar motivations as the James Hodgkinson attempted assassination of Steve Scalise and the congressional baseball game? I'm not hearing anybody talking about that. The speculation of the ISIS terrorists, that's been thrown out the window. But that's my thinking. That's my.
All right. Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but a lot of people are talking about this angle that the shooter was a leftist taking a shot at Trump supporters, because Trump supporters, these are country music fans. You got folks. The people advancing this theory, interestingly, are leftists, and they're doing it to criticize Trump. Leftist media people are saying, the People's Concert are a bunch of country people. You know who they are, right? They're a bunch of Trump voters. Well, there's a lot about country people that the Democrats don't like. They vote Republican. Many of them are Christian. They like the flag. They love Lee Greenwood, for example. They don't like much of what the left stands for. The left despises. They think of country music fans as no different than slave owners in the old antebellum days. NASCAR drivers, NASCAR fans, they hold their nose when they think about this. So the guy targeting country music supporters, in some leftist views, is somebody attacking Trump voters. And so just like our caller here, people are speculating this guy must have been a Democrat or a leftist angry at people that elected Trump, and so he starts mowing them down. Now, before you start cackling, here's audio soundbite number 9. Jeff Zeleny at CNN. He's a former reporter for the New York Times, and he was on a program called At This Hour. This is from yesterday, but get this.
Las Vegas is a town that he is connected to and knows well. His name is emblazoned on the top of a hotel there as well. He campaigned there a lot. Something else I think to keep in mind, a lot of these country music supporters were likely Trump supporters, and this is something that, of course, is hitting the tapestry of all Americans, and there are going to be victims from across the country here.
What would you call that but bigotry? I mean, the guy, so here we are. Identity politics has gone off the rails to such a degree that Jeff Zeleny at CNN identifies the concert goers as Trump supporters. Now, what Zeleny went on to say was that the reason that matters is that Trump knows that the people at that concert were probably his supporters. And so the theory is that Trump is going to care more about Las Vegas because they were his supporters that got shot, as opposed to caring about other things. This is out there in the drive-by media. The reason Trump was somber, and the reason Trump attempted to make people sound like he cares. Oh, yeah, the media is not giving Trump any props for his remarks yesterday, saying he faked it, had to rely on the prompter, said that's not who Trump really is, and if he dares go off prompter, he's not going to be able to keep up this act of grief They're saying that Trump's grief is not real. It's an act because he really doesn't care. But then this guy comes along and says, well, wait a minute. Those are Trump supporters that got killed. And Trump may end up caring about this more than, say, Puerto Rico. Because it was his supporters. And in Puerto Rico, they're all Democrats. So Trump probably doesn't care. They're just saying these kind of things, folks. And late-night comedians are saying these kinds of things, or will. Trump, meanwhile, is in San Juan. He landed there today. Tim in Orange County, California. Get you in here quickly before we have to go. What's up?
Hey, Rush. How you doing?
Fine.
Good. Hey, I just want to let you know that I was at the concert over the weekend. I was there Friday, Saturday, and on Sunday. I was on the ground close to Jason Aldean near a barrier, and I saw, and felt the terrifying event. I'm shaking as I talk right now. But what I really wanted to say was, to me, it was good people that were there. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you name it. Good people enjoying a great time, great music. Not one time did I see anybody wearing a Trump hat. Not one time did I see anybody wearing a Trump shirt. We were just there having a good time.
How many political conversations were you having at the concert?
Had none. None, Rush. It was just about having a good time and enjoying the music.
Right. Can you hang on a minute?
I can.
Okay,
sure.
It may be a while. We have somebody claims to have been there when this happened. We will continue after this. Great example, by the way, of what is meant when I say the left politicizes everything. Here's Jeff Zeleny at CNN, and he's looking at a country concert in Las Vegas and automatically politicizing it by assuming everybody there is a Trump fan because they're country, western, hayseeds, and hicks. You can't escape it. You cannot escape the left's attempt to politicize everything, primarily for the purposes of being derogatory toward people. Back we are here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network, Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, Advanced Anti-Media Studies, and Advanced Anti-Leftist Studies. I got a lot of studies wrapped up here at the Limbaugh Institute. There are no graduates, and nobody ever gets a degree because the learning never ends. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. What would happen if an incident occurred at a rap concert and a bunch of Republicans, well, everybody in there is a Democrat voter. Everybody attending is a Democrat voter. And then started making some political comments on the incident based on that observation. What do you think reaction would be? But no, here the Democrats and media can theorize that the crowd was all Trump supporters, and that's why Trump cares more about this than he does San Juan, Puerto Rico, or why he cares about this more than why he really got somber and really looked like he was grieving, which he was faking. But it's his supporters that got shot, so maybe. Just incredible. Now, we have somebody on the phone who says he was there. His name is Tim. He is from Orange County, California. And I want to pick up where you left off. You said that you were there when the shooting began and you didn't see any Make America Great hats. There's nobody talking about Trump, nobody talking about politics, just a bunch of people enjoying the event, the music, whatever was going on. Is that pretty much right?
Rush, I was there for 3 days, 3 full days of music and concert, and not one time, never did I see a hat that said Trump on it. Never did I see a Make America Great Again shirt. Never did I hear anyone talk about politics. It was a phenomenal time, and until
okay. Now let me stop you there, because that never in 3 days. You're talking about at concerts, only at concerts. You mean that while the music was playing, nobody was talking politics at all?
Not during when the music was playing, before, not outside the venue, not while we're eating lunch there, never. And I go to a lot of country concerts, there's a lot of patriotism.
Right.
But I never hear, we don't talk politics there. We're just there having a good time. These are husbands and wives and sons and daughters and little kids at this concert that were being, victimized by this maniac. But it's not about politics. It's not. And I just felt real strongly about that. And I want to say one more thing, if I could, Rush. When I was with my girlfriend at this concert and we jumped the barricade and we ran over dead bodies to get out of that place. You know who was running in? There were 4 police officers without like tactical gear with their handguns and their rifles. They were running towards it. They didn't know where the threat was. They could have been anywhere. So I think people should rethink their stance, those that are anti-law enforcement, and these guys were there to give their lives. And a lot of people at that concert did the same thing. They're just good-hearted people, and I was unhappy. I wanted to share that with you.
Well, I'm glad you called. I'm glad that you found your way through here, and we're able to get through. I've seen the observation made about the law enforcement people and the first responders too running toward the action, just like what happened at 9/11. They ran into the towers to try to rescue people. Now, what prompted your call, Tim? What prompted your call here to tell me that there was no politics being thought of or discussed? What did you hear that made you want to tell us this today?
You know, I could. It's the last 2 days have been kind of a blur, you know, and talking lack of sleep and just dealing with what I witnessed. But I did read a couple of articles. I don't remember exactly where I had heard somebody referencing country fans. I think there was a comedian or two referencing the country fans as being Trump supporters. So in a way, it wasn't that big of a deal, or we deserved it. Something to that effect. And it really, really bothered me. You know, I happen to be a Trump fan, but you know what? I love America first. It has nothing to do with politics for me, man. These are good people who did not deserve to get shot, terrified, or terrorized, and killed. Simple as that.
Well, no innocents ever do. I mean, it goes without saying. I'll tell you who you're thinking of. And we almost broke this news yesterday. It was a CBS vice president legal counsel. She was not involved in the television network. Her name was Geftman Gold. That's her last name, hyphenated, Geftman Gold. And she had put on her Facebook, she called Republicans repugs, short for repugnant. And she criticized some of the victims as Republican gun toters who did not deserve sympathy. Her first name is Haley. And she wrote on Facebook she had no hope that Republicans would ever take action and do the right thing if they didn't do anything when children were murdered. She's probably talking about Sandy Hook. She went on and basically says people deserved it. They voted for Trump. They deserved to get shot. Now, CBS, to their credit, fired this woman in an instant. But what do you take away from that?
Rush, that's exactly what I had heard. That was really my reason for calling you. I just didn't recall her name. All I would say is, how dare she? We were like fish in a barrel to this guy, and we were innocent people. I mean, it just disgusts me that people politicize this right away, and I'm offended, and I think every country western fan out there is offended. I just wanted to share that with you, man. I'm praying for the families. I'm praying for the injured, those that were killed, those that witnessed this horrible
can't imagine
tragedy.
We read about this. We see the video after the fact. We see Jason Aldean on stage not knowing what's going on. A lot of fans think that the noise they heard was part of the act. They think it's some super techno effect that's been added, so they don't move at first. It isn't until they start to see people get hit and mowed down that, holy smokes, and start getting out of there. I don't know how you recover from this as quickly as you were there in the center of a massacre. You barely got out of it. 500 plus people wounded, 59 people, not counting the shooter, dead. You're back home in Southern California. It's not that far away, but man, this is. We read about this or see it from afar and will react to it as such, but being in the middle of this had to be, I don't know, traumatic.
Rush, I can't even describe it. I mean, it was the scariest thing that I've ever been involved in.
Did you ever know at any point where the fire was coming from?
I didn't. In fact, after there was a first round of maybe 15 to 30 rounds. I thought they were fireworks. It was about 20 yards from me. My assumption was after the second round, and I saw Jason Aldean went off the stage, my assumption was that I never thought to look up high. I thought they were at level head. So everybody, got on top of each other. And I was waiting for someone to put their gun over the barrier and start killing us. So there was never a thought to looking up at Mandalay Bay. And then when people started getting hit and the bullets were raining down on us, I think it was a kind of a free-for-all, saving each other and getting out of there.
Running faster than you ever had in your life, probably.
It was terrifying. Absolute.
Was there ever a moment where you thought it might have been safer just to stop and get as low as you could, or was the instinct to get out of there?
Well, no, not for me. I mean, after the second round and I saw a couple people around me get hit, the barrier that I had that was in front of me was probably 10 feet from me. I grabbed my girlfriend. I jumped the barrier. I pulled her over. I stayed low, but I kept running. We didn't know where the threat was. We thought they could be all over the place there, and we got separated. But she was safe, thank God. And I just ran out of the venue, like I said.
Where did you stop running? How far away were you when you stopped running, and where were you?
Well, there was a hotel next door. There was a Hooters hotel next door. I ran in the casino there, and every employee there was gone. So there were everybody there from the concert was in there ducking and hiding, and I didn't want to stay inside there without any security, without any police. So I ran outside a back door. I don't remember the street. I believe it was Tropicana. I ran. And a few people ran with me, and we just kept running. And I was in touch with my brother, who, was keeping me updated on what was going on, because I didn't know if there was one shooter, two shooters.
So you didn't know it was the Mandalay Bay was where the shooter was. Were you running away from that or towards it?
I definitely sensed, based on where the bullets were ricocheting and flying by me and hitting people, I could sense that it was coming from that direction. So when I got to the street, I ran away from it. I ended up running, a couple miles down to the Thomas and Mack Center, where there was a huge law enforcement presence.
And when did you meet up with your girlfriend?
Well, at about 5 a.m, I kind of disregarded police orders, and I went to, there were some people there that were kind enough, again, country western fans who were kind enough to let a stranger, my girlfriend, in their room to stay with them for about 4 hours until I found her. I found her at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we went back to our hotel, was cleared at about.
That had to be nerve-wracking. All those hours, you don't know where she is or what her condition is.
Yeah, Rush, it was awful. But at the same time, she did text me, so I knew she was safe. But you know what? All I could think about are those poor people that were basically slaughtered for no reason. That's all I could think about, and I my heart goes out to them. It's just. It was just a horrible, horrible tragedy.
At any time,
it wasn't political.
At any time in the middle of this or in the aftermath, were you cursing the NRA?
Never thought about that.
No, that's it. Folks, I'm asking this question on purpose because it's the first thing the left thought of. And the NRA's got no culpability here. The NRA had nothing to do with this, and yet they have become the target now. And they didn't do it. So I'm just saying, you were there. Did you ever think, damn that NRA or anything of the sort?
No, I thought, damn that shooter or shooters. It's the person, not the guns. And it was just a deranged psychopath, and hopefully they get to the bottom of it. That's all. I guess that was a secondary thought. My first was with all the victims.
Well, Tim, I'm glad you got through. I appreciate your answering questions.
Sure, Rush.
How close, what was the closest you were to somebody who was hit and injured?
It's probably, 3 feet. There were 2 people that were hit right in front of me. And then about 15 yards away, there were several more people that were hit. And when I jumped the barrier, there was a deceased security guard with a head wound who was probably 19 or 20 years old.
You ever seen anything like this before? You ever seen these kind of injuries before, other than in movies? Have you ever seen this for real?
Rush, no. Obviously I'd never want to see it again. I'm seeing it every second of the last 2 days in my mind. Never did I feel or witness what I've seen. I can't even describe how awful it was. And I'm so thankful that myself and my girlfriend made it out of there, but I'm so hurt by, all the victims. But no, I can't even describe it, Rush. It was just terror.
Tim, I'm glad you called, and I appreciate you getting it. Thank you very much for putting up with our questions.
Yeah, thank you, Rush.
Best to you. That's Tim. He is in Orange County, California, and was there during the event in Las Vegas. We'll take a break and come right back after this. We were among the first to mention yesterday this CBS employee, this executive by the name of Haley Geftman Gold. It was in the opening monologue of the program, and it probably got lost with many other things, but it was genuinely outrageous. Here he is, a lawyer. She is a staff lawyer for CBS. Nothing to do with the news division. She's in the junior executive suite. And she said that this shooting, well, it's a bunch of Republican gun toters that got shot. They didn't deserve any sympathy. She called Republicans repugs, as short for repugnant. And she said the repugs will never take action and do the right thing. If they didn't do anything when children were murdered, and that's obviously a reference to Sandy Hook. And then she said these people practically deserve to die because they voted for Trump. So CBS had to get rid of her. If she put all this on Facebook, CBS had to get rid of her. And CBS confirmed to Washington Post that she was dismissed for her deeply unacceptable comments. This individual, who was with us for approximately 1 year, violated the standards of our company and is no longer an employee of CBS. Her views, as expressed on social media, are deeply unacceptable to all of us at CBS. Our hearts go out to the victims in Las Vegas and their families. Her posts have now been deleted. The Daily Caller was first to report this. And they say she now sincerely regrets her indefensible and shameful post, and she's deeply sorry for diminishing the significance of every life affected. Fine. Everybody apologizes. What was her gut reaction? What was her instinctive reaction? At the time she posted, 50 people were dead, and over 400 had been wounded. And this woman... You talk about politicizing things. This woman, a CBS lawyer, senior vice president executive, starts talking about how they deserved it. They voted for Trump. They don't care about gun control. A bunch of gun-toting Republicans themselves, they don't care about people. They deserved it. My point about Haley Geftman Gold is she's not alone. She just happens to be the first to post it somewhere where somebody saw it. But I'm telling you, the extreme insanity that exists on the left is filled with people that have that reaction. These are the people that are corrupting everything they touch. These are the people trying to politicize everything in our culture and in our country. And these are the people that really harbor an almost incalculable degree of hate. They think they are sweetness and light, and that we, conservatives and Republicans, are the ones who are hate mongers. But these people are in a world all their own, where not only do they hate, but they have been poisoned and infected by it, and it governs everything they do. And their hate has been on high burner ever since the election. So she did say what she really was feeling. She did say she couldn't wait to get it out, what she was really thinking. But I want you to know she's not alone. There are many more than you would believe who harbor almost identical sentiments as this woman shared on her Facebook page. Here's Matt in Bellingham, Washington, as we head back to the phones. Welcome, sir. It's great to have you here with us.
Rush, it's quite the honor. Rush Revere and 2FIT dittos. My point, I'm surprised. I'm seeing all the news, and I haven't seen anybody make a connection to see if football's in this guy's past.
There's another one I wish I'd have thought of. You're talking about CTE. You're wondering this guy might have suffered concussions in a previous part of his life, right?
I mean, there's Hernandez. Why haven't they thought of this right away to go look at this?
Well, we don't. That's a good point. I have to say that I don't know if anybody knows that he played football or has suffered concussions. The reference to Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez, 27 years old, was serving life sentence for murder at a prison that's actually not far from Gillette Stadium. It's in Walpole. It's where Mickey Donovan went to prison, on Ray Donovan. That's how people talk about things, where fictional characters go. Yeah, that's where Mickey Donovan got out of jail in episode 1. Anyway, the lawyer for Aaron Hernandez, guess what? You know what? We donated his brain to the brain scientists examining the effects of the NFL on players. And guess what? 27-year-old Aaron Hernandez had a worse case of CTE that we've ever seen. Worse than players that had played 20 years, worse than players in their 50s. So this is an attempt to exonerate the guy in death and also come up with an excuse for his actions which might mitigate his guilt in any civil proceedings that might be enacted against his estate by families of the victims. And so our caller here, well, hey, Aaron Hernandez, 27 years, well, how many years did he play in the NFL and high school, college, and had CTE? What? Anybody looking at the shooter's background? Again, this is using the left's own reasoning in other areas and turning it right back on them. When we take a break here at the bottom, it's coming up short. I want to get to the audio sound bites that we have to show you some of the hysteria about this that exists on the left and where they think the blame is and what they think the solutions are. And we are back. We'll get back to your phone calls here in just a second, folks, but I want to try to get through as much of what we have here because it's starting to back up, including news unrelated to the shooting event in Las Vegas. But the audio sound bites here, they're always interesting to react to, and reacting, frankly, is one of the most fun things we do here, particularly on the spontaneous side. So our first bite today is from Representative Al Green, a Democrat from Texas. He was speaking on the floor of the House yesterday.
Our nation is in mourning. Many hearts are bleeding. Mr. Speaker, there is much suffering. Lives have been lost in a senseless, needless manner in Las Vegas. Mr. Speaker, there is a right time for all things. This is a time for our nation to mourn and for hearts to heal. Mr. Speaker, I announce that impeachment is postponed. Let us mourn, let us heal.
Wow, the impeachment is postponed. How many of you knew that impeachment proceedings were taking place? Well, they weren't. This is just some ragtag renegade, some rogue out of Texas, who's working with anti-Maxine Waters, who wanted impeachment proceedings to get going. So he filed some impeachment papers that nobody cared, they yawned about. And he decided to postpone impeachment yesterday because hearts are bleeding, Mr. Speaker, and it's a time for our nation to mourn and for hearts to heal. I would think that this would be the time to ratchet up impeachment. I mean, if you're really going to go impeach Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors and so forth, and this is his audience out there getting shot, if they hadn't gone, they wouldn't have gotten shot. The way these people think. But I just wanted you to hear for yourself that impeachment has been postponed, kind of like a rain delay. We don't know when it's going to be brought back. Here we have a bunch of Democrats parading to the floor of the Senate to politicize the shooting. There's a new thing that Democrats are doing. They're denouncing prayer now, since Trump endeavored to pray. They're blaming Republicans. We have Chuck U. Schumer, Richard Blumenthal, the fake combat war hero from Vietnam. He totally made up that he faced combat, and he gets elected in Connecticut. And then Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren. Up first is Chuck U.
How did this monster acquire the arsenal he used to rain down death on a crowd of innocents? We'll have to reckon with the fact that this man was able to assemble an arsenal of military-grade weapons. As much as we might hope to, we cannot banish evil from the earth. Congress can't do that. President can't do that. What Congress can do, what Congress must do, is pass laws that keep our citizens safe. And that starts with laws that help prevent guns, especially the most dangerous guns, from falling into the wrong hands.
You can't do that. What law that we do not have that you could enact that would have prevented this guy from getting his arsenal, Senator Schumer? That really is the question. There isn't a magic law you have out there. We have 59 people dead. We have laws against murder. People still get killed in America. Not even laws against murder stop it from happening. What law could you come up with here that would, quote, prevent guns, especially the most dangerous guns, from falling into the wrong hands? The guy already broke every law on the book getting these guns. What's another law going to do? Automatic weapons are essentially illegal. Is the NRA advocating new laws to make them legal? Of course not. The NRA has no involvement whatsoever in trying to make the acquisition of illegal automatic weapons easier. What's tough about this is this shooter had nothing in his background, at least it's been reported, that would disqualify him from owning a gun. Not a thing. But even at that, he had to violate every law on the books to accumulate this kind of an arsenal. What law, Senator Schumer, could you pass that would have prevented these weapons from falling into his hands? What does that even mean? We need a law to prevent guns from falling into the wrong hands. What does that even mean, falling into the wrong hands? This guy didn't have anything fall into his hands. He went out there and got them. And he violated laws to do it. I have had so many debates in private settings, not public, private settings with typical establishment liberal political types who just utter whatever they say on gun control because it makes them sound like they care. It makes them sound very sophisticated, but they don't know what they're saying. They're just articulate. This is why I say the Democrats have no innovation. It's like Hillary Clinton. She is programmed. She goes out and starts talking about this. We must take the politics out of this situation, and we must start taking action against the NRA. It's stupid. She is putting politics in the situation. But I guarantee you that line comes from a Democrat playbook. Hillary Clinton can't say it if it hasn't already been said and published and approved in some Democrat party policy manual. It is amazing to me. She cannot think on her own 2 feet. She cannot come up with something to say that is genuinely hers, that she created from her heart or from her mind. Everything she says is a political cliche that has been popularized by the Democrat Party and the left for all these years. And so's Chuck Schumer here. We have to have a new law to prevent these exceptionally bad weapons from falling into the wrong hands. How does that happen? This guy was minding his own business one day, and all of a sudden a bunch of guns started raining down on him. No, the guy went out and sought them. He violated the law to get them. And I've asked these leftists that I've had these debates with. One of them was at a dinner party on Fifth Avenue, right across from Central Park. The guy was a former Treasury official in the Nixon administration. He was a dinosaur. And this was in the mid-'90s, and he was a dinosaur then. I don't even know if he's still alive. And he's giving me all the cliches the left has about gun control. And it's all about, we've got to get guns out of this society. We just, the murder rate, the guns, there's no sense in having people having guns. It's senseless, it's cruel, it's stupid. Why don't you conservatives join us, he said. So I pointed out Central Park. And I said, Mr. Dinosaur, if you can assure me that whoever's over there lurking under the cover of darkness is also not going to be able to get their hands on a gun, then we might have something to talk about. But Mr. Dinosaur, the only thing you're going to do if you succeed is take guns out of the hands of innocent people who defend themselves with them, and you're not going to solve anything. You're going to make people more at risk, more vulnerable. The danger will increase. And in fact, let me repeat this. These are stats from the American Enterprise Institute. From 1994, the percentage change in number of firearms versus gun homicides. The number of firearms since 1994 has increased 56%. That's pretty substantial. That's a pretty, whatever the number is, it's substantial. A lot of guns have been purchased since 1994. 56% increase over what it was in 1994. But what about the gun murder rate? Well, guess what? The percentage of murders, the gun homicide rate, is down 49% in the same time frame. Now, the left says more guns equals more crime. More guns equals more mayhem. More guns equals more dead people. More guns equals more murder. No, it doesn't. 56% increase gun ownership, 1994. 49% decline in gun homicide rates at the same time. You could say that having more guns has reduced the number of gun homicides. Quick timeout. Back after this. Don't go away. Here is the Connecticut Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal, who lied about facing combat fire in Vietnam. His lie was exposed during a Senate campaign, and he still got elected. He looks... Never mind. Doesn't matter. Here's what he said.
I am now furious because Congress has failed to act. Nothing has changed since Newtown. Thoughts and prayers are not enough.
Of course.
Hand-wringing and soul-searching is needed, but it is insufficient. What's needed now is action. Those 5 years ago, when a man wielding a semi-automatic rifle murdered 20 children and 6 adults at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, the cries of grief echoed around this country. And there was a moment when action could have been taken. We need to seize this moment.
We did. What? This is what gets so frustrating. This is a pure emotional appeal, and it works. It works on emotionally consumed, temporarily at the time, brain-dead people. We gotta do something, we gotta do something. What? Well, this guy broke every law that already exists. I don't care, we need to do something. Okay, what could we have done to stop? I don't know, but we gotta do something. But this guy broke every law we have. I don't care, he should have been stopped. What would you suggest? Get rid of the NRA. That's the problem. That's how it works. The NRA is not advocating for people to be able to buy automatic weapons, machine guns. The NRA didn't do anything here. The shooter had nothing in his background that would disqualify him from owning a gun. Did the NRA own the Mandalay Bay Hotel? Did the NRA rent the guy the room? Did the NRA have anything to do? Nothing. The NRA is a bogeyman for the left. The leftists know that most of their supporters don't have any knowledge whatsoever about guns, other than they're bad, you're bad, it's horrible. That's all they know about guns. And they know even less about gun law. They just know that we have to get rid of them. We got to get rid of the guns. Because they've been told that if we get rid of the guns, that Sandy Hook wouldn't have happened and this wouldn't have happened. There's no concern for constitutional rights, because only 30% of the American people can even tell you the 3 branches of government correctly. And besides, now the Constitution was written by a bunch of racist pigs engaging in toxic masculinity, so it didn't even have any credibility with people. So that's why people like Hillary Clinton and the brainless Jimmy Kimmel were all over the NRA yesterday, creating false narratives, false stories, exploiting the ignorant, with emotional appeals when emotions are raw. And that's how the politically craven behave. When people are suffering, when dead bodies are still warm, these vultures are flying over the scene within minutes, feeding off of the crisis, feeding off of the despair. No different than with the gentle giant in Ferguson, Missouri. Hand up, don't shoot. Didn't happen. Same playbook, same feeding frenzy every time. And every time we have to show up here and start mounting the same fact-based defense of whatever aspect of our country is under assault today by these same people. Here's Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. She was on the floor of the Senate yesterday.
Thoughts and prayers are good, but they're simply not enough. Thoughts and prayers are not enough when more moms and dads will bury their children this week. And thoughts and prayers are not enough when sons and daughters will be forced to grow up without their parents. Attacks like we have seen today have happened all too often in America. Enough is enough. We have to have a conversation about how to stop gun violence in America, and we need to have that conversation right now.
You do not really want that conversation, Senator. You do not really want it because it has nothing to do with the NRA, and it has nothing to do with guns, and it has nothing to do with gun law. You want to find out why this guy did what he did? You're going to have to learn a lot more than what you think the NRA is responsible for. You're going to have to learn a lot more about the specifics of this guy's life and what they are that drove him to this. But I'll guarantee you the NRA couldn't have done anything to stop him. Getting rid of the NRA wouldn't have stopped him. There's not a single law you could have passed at any time in the past that would have stopped this guy from doing what he did. If you really want to stop this guy from doing what he did, find out why he was mad. You people on the left are always interested in remedial things, right? You think evil characters can be saved? Well, find out what drove this guy over the edge. Is it gambling? Ban gambling, then. Is it debt? Did debt drive him nuts? Then ban debt. Is it gigantic government where nothing can get solved? Is it bureaucracy everywhere? No matter where this guy went, he couldn't get a solution. He couldn't get even anybody to take what he had to deal with seriously. In that case, ban government. I mean, where does this end, Senator Warren? I'll tell you where it doesn't end is where you want to take this. You could get rid of the NRA. You could strip the Second Amendment out of the Constitution, and events like this are still going to happen. Probably even more of them. When you fix it so that people cannot defend themselves in circumstances like this, you are guaranteed to get more of this, Senator Warren. And if you ever did that, all of the forthcoming death would be on you. And then let's see what you have to say about prayer being irrelevant. Let's see what you have to say about prayer and concern being not enough. What is the purpose of prayer, Senator? What is the purpose of prayer for you to categorize it as not enough? What are people praying for, do you think, Senator? Are they praying that they wish it hadn't happened? Are they praying for the salvation of the souls of the dead? Are they asking God for understanding? What are they praying for? And until you know that, how do you know that it's not enough, Senator? The presumption of these people drives me batty. These assumed know-it-alls on the left who wouldn't understand basic human values if they got slapped upside the head with them. Just had a caller, a drive-by. Wonder if any of the guy's guns came from Fast and Furious. I doubt that, but it reminds me that there might be people that don't know what Fast and Furious was. It might be worth explaining that. So we'll put that on the agenda for the next busy broadcast hour, which will be upon us soon. You know, I have to tell you, sometimes it's fun to watch Fredo Cuomo on CNN. Fredo has stumbled across a piece of news that has him totally confused. And that is a law enforcement official has said that the gunman wired $100,000 to the Philippines before his shooting spree. And so Fredo is asking a financial expert, how could a guy with such a dark heart send money to people in need or whatever in the Philippines? I guess Fredo knows that the money was not to retire gambling debt to Philippine credit holders, but rather was to Filipino charities. I don't know idea, but how could a guy with such a dark heart? Well, we finally get, by the way, greetings, welcome back, Rush Limbaugh here at the EIB Network. When we find out, let me put it this way, when we are told, because at some point we will be told, why the guy did this. I mean, they told us, remember TWA 800 that was blown out of the sky over East Mauritius, Long Island? They told us what happened. They told us that a spark in a near-empty fuel tank blew up the airplane. They told us why the Sandy Hook guy did what he did. They told us why the Columbine shooters did what. So we're going to get an explanation at some point. Somebody with the air of authority and credibility is going to tell us, as best they have been able to determine, why Paddock did it. How many of us are going to believe it? How many people are going to believe what they end up telling? Well, it depends on what it is. But they've ruled out any form of international terrorism. In 36 hours, they have poured through everything they got, and they can conclusively tell us that this guy had nothing to do with ISIS, even though ISIS is doubling and tripling down, trying to take credit for it. We're still a year into the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, and despite no evidence whatsoever, after a year, they still will not tell us that there was no collusion between Trump and Russia. They keep investigating it, but this, they've got it pretty down pat. So if it wasn't any of that, then what was it? And I'm not going to comment till they tell us what the motive is. At some point, they're going to have to. But you can get an idea where they may be going by uncovering this news that he wired $100,000 to the Philippines. If by the way, if there's a reason for that, I haven't heard it. Have you heard why? Okay. So I don't know why Fredo's assuming it went to charities rather than paying off gambling debts. Folks, I had somebody remind me that, Rush, you really don't push your website enough. It was done in the context that ever since the Hannity show, I've been listening to you closer than ever. You really make a lot of sense about a lot of things, and I can never remember it all. And then the guy reminded, but it's all there on your website, and you never tell people that. He's right, I don't. I'm having enough trouble getting all the news in here every 3 hours, much less talking about it. But we do. Folks, I'm so proud of this website and the people that put it together. They work hard, and they work 24/7, keeping it up and current. And we sell subscriptions. We've got the premium side of this, and it is awesome. It's an encyclopedia. The RushLimbaugh.com website, Rush 24/7, is encyclopedic. It's got all of the old DittoCam episodes, and you can stream the audio version if you want. Transcripts of practically everything said on this program are there and are searchable and printable and so forth. Now we never have subscription drives because you can subscribe whenever you want, but we do have varying different premiums that we offer for new subscriptions. Right now we've got a brand new Tervis tumbler that is the best looking Tervis tumbler that we've ever had. And you can see it. I don't even want to try to describe it. I'm not going to hold it up to the DittoCam here because that'll take some time. Just go to the website and look at it. It's free to subscribers, new subscribers to RushLimbaugh.com. And if you throw in a subscription to the Limbaugh letter, there's additional goodies there. You can see it all, and just visit rushlimbaugh.com and take a look at this Tumblr. Free to, and they're going out fast. We have a whole fulfillment warehouse up. We don't farm that out. We fulfill our own stuff. And it'll get to you very, very quickly. That's rushlimbaugh.com. Now, I want to go to audio soundbite number set, Jimmy Kimmel. The Democrat Party has gotten its hooks into Jimmy Kimmel ever since his son had the episode at the hospital. Jimmy Kimmel has become an emotional expert on the Democrat Party agenda. First, Obamacare and socialized medicine, and everybody ought to have it, and nobody ought to have to pay for it. It's inhumane to have to pay for health care. Especially for your sick infant and so forth. And now Jimmy Kimmel is becoming an expert on the Democrat Party's version of the NRA and gun control. And for those of you who watch Jimmy Kimmel, I just want you to know that every monologue that he will do on this is going to effectively be Democrat Party talking points. Ever since he got off onto the Obamacare tangent, he's always been what he is, make no mistake. But with that monologue, the Democrat Party, I think, has established channels. And here's a guy who was funny as he could be, was a great comedian, but it wasn't enough. Everybody in showbiz wants, at some point in their careers, to be taken seriously. It's great getting laughs. It's great making people laugh. But at some point, like actors who, when called to testify, they say play a farm wife in a movie. And then some senator who's got a crush on the actress calls her up to testify on farm problems in America because she portrayed a farm wife in a movie. The actress readily accepts the invitation because it's a chance to show off her brain. It's a chance to show that she's much more substantive than just an actress. So they all jump at the chance. And now you can, when the drive-bys, take a look at this next time you read a showbiz interview. It's the most amazing thing. An actress will portray, in this case, they'll give you an example of a real-life character who was a victim of something. And the actress who plays this character is then interviewed by the drive-bys as the movie is coming out and they're trying to hype ticket sales. And the actress is accorded expert status. The entertainment reporter asking the questions assumes that the actress or actor, depending on the role, has become an expert on that person. And the actress or actor willingly accepts this and starts describing what they learned about the person as they worked hard to prepare for the role. And so people who are pretending to be other people for a total of a couple of hours are automatically granted expert status in who those people are. And I just marvel at these interviews as I listen to these actresses and actors describe these people they're portraying as though they are educational historians who know everything about it, and they don't. Well, this is what's happened here to Jimmy Kimmel in a way. Kimmel was a great comedian. He was uniquely funny. He had his own. I especially liked him when he did the predictions bit on the Fox NFL pregame show back when it was good. He was hilarious. I haven't seen the late night show much, but he was genuinely funny. But now Jimmy Kimmel has become a political expert. And he is looked at as a political expert. Folks, I've had this happen to me. I know what I'm talking about. In the early days of this program, I would say something that was particularly brilliant and unique. And before I knew it, I would hear from an elected official somewhere who wanted me to appear with him at one of his fundraisers or would want to establish a line of communication to keep me up to speed on what this politician cared about. And it always featured flattery. Man, you Limbaugh, you know more instinctively than people who have been taught this stuff for 20 years. Can I stay in touch with you and keep you on top of it? Absolutely, Congressman or Senator, whatever. It's very seductive when it starts happening to you, especially if you're a Hollywood entertainer, and here come all of a sudden the ugly people in showbiz, that's politicians, they call you and they want to make you legitimate in a world of really serious stuff. So you accept it. So now Jimmy Kimmel has gone from being an expert in health care to an expert in gun control. And here is a brief segment of his monologue last night.
When someone with a beard attacks us, we tap phones, we invoke travel bans, we build walls, we take every possible precaution to make sure it doesn't happen again. But when an American buys a gun and kills other Americans, then there's nothing we can do about that. Second Amendment, I guess. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, a number of other lawmakers who won't do anything about this because the NRA has their balls in a money clip, also sent their thoughts and their prayers today, which is good. They should be praying. They should be praying for God to forgive them for letting the gun lobby run this country, because it is it's so crazy.
All right. Now, yeah, okay. Well, now, wait a minute. You say it's over the top, but every bit of that, have you not heard that before? The NRA runs the country, runs the Republicans. The NRA is responsible. It's cliched. All of that is Democrat Party talking points. I don't know what is. That's what the business mentioning Paul Ryan and McConnell is what ties this guy to the Democrats. Don't you see? I mean, I don't know the process here. I don't know who is teaching Jimmy Kimmel what to know, what to say, and how to say it. But all of this is cliched. It's like Hillary Clinton when this event happened. We've got to take the politics out of this and start seriously blaming the NRA. What? That's right out of the playbook. Hillary, tell us what you really think about this. Don't give us something that every Democrat's memorized. That is a talking point from your speech messenger and manager. Well, that's what this is. All of that is cliches. That is an assembled bunch of cliches that make a monologue. The NRA, just one more time, the NRA had nothing to do with this. You could have gotten rid of the NRA 25 years ago. This would have still happened. The NRA has no linkage to this whatsoever. There's not a law that you could pass that would stop this guy from doing what he did. He already broke existing laws, including murder laws, to do what he did. But let's get to the point that the reason this happened is the NRA owns the Republicans. There was a typical know-it-all tweet from a guy named Kyle Griffin. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to use his tweet. Here's what he said. I'm sorry, he's an MSNBC producer. Okay, so he's another cliched leftist Democrat. Since 1998, he says, the NRA has donated $3,555,000 to current members of Congress. Find out who has received the donations. That has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with his event. If no money had been given to the NRA, it does not have a thing to do with whether this event would have happened. But that's not the way to deal with this. The way to deal with this is to respond this way. That's all you've got? That since 1998, the NRA has donated $3.5 million to members of Congress? How about the fact that since 1998, labor unions have donated over $700 million to the Democrat Party in the same time period? Well, that doesn't mean it. Exactly. It doesn't mean anything. Well, the labor unions, I mean, they're not shooting guns. No, you're missing the point. If you're going to blame financial donations and contributions by the NRA for impacting American life, then you had better be prepared to agree that twice as much money donated by big labor to Democrats has the same kind of impact. It doesn't get people killed. It doesn't put guns in. Not the point. Not the point. You're trying to point out here that all of this money is itself corrupting. Well, if that's true, then you guys have twice the problem. But none of this, I doubt that Kyle Griffin even understands how he has had his tweet rammed right back down his throat. Because in his world, there's nothing wrong with labor unions. There's nothing wrong with labor unions giving to Democrats. The NRA is a standalone. The NRA doesn't advocate for events like this. The NRA does it. In fact, the NRA probably works harder than anybody to prevent events like this. What do you mean? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You can't say. I just did say it, and it's true. There's no more gun safety-oriented group than the NRA. But the NRA is not in charge of how people behave. But I don't know what else you want. Every law on the books was already violated by this guy, including murder, meaning no law stopped him. You could confiscate every gun. Well, you actually couldn't do that, but let's say you could. Let's say you did confiscate every gun that you know exists. You could pass a constitutional amendment, you could make it illegal, and you could get every gun. This guy would still find a way to get the guns he got and use them. What do you mean? Because he broke the law, for crying out. Laws don't stop these people. You mean there's nothing we can do to... Well, not with laws and not with the NRA. You're not going to stop this by going at it the way you're going at it. You're not even getting close to finding out why this guy did this. You're stopping at the NRA made it possible. The NRA enabled. They did not. They had nothing to do with this. There's not a single gun owner in the country except the people that sold this guy guns that had anything to do with this. None of that matters because the cliches attached to the emotionalism of bashing Republicans and bashing the NRA is all that's necessary. Just like every other liberal solution to a problem, it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't even address the problem. Liberal fixes for health care. Where'd that get us? Liberals fix Social Security. Where'd that get us? Liberals fix deficit spending. Where'd that get us? Liberals attack the national debt. Where'd that get? Everything they fix gets worse. We'll be back in a second. Here's a question for all the late-night comedians. They all weighed in on this, except I think Jimmy Fallon didn't, but the others did. And predictably a cliched way. But here's a question. Have any of these late-night comedians ever done a heartfelt monologue on all of the gun murder in Chicago? The totals there dwarf what happened in Las Vegas. The thing is that Las Vegas happened in one day. Chicago, in just the last year, certainly two, has a murder total that dwarfs this. And Chicago's run by Democrats, so we don't really hear much. I mean, we never hear about the NRA and its responsibilities in Chicago. We never hear late-night comedians or anybody else demanding that the NRA do something. In fact, we don't even hear that people ought to be told to get rid of guns in Chicago. There's literally nothing said about what goes on in Chicago. But there certainly have not been heartfelt and heart-tugging, tear-jerking, tear-filled monologues and comments about the gun homicides in Chicago. Why is that, folks? Why do we not get that? Why do we not hear that? It's been going on a lot longer than what happened in Las Vegas. But it fascinates me, and I know the answer to my question here, but it still is a fascinating question. Where is all of the hurt? Where is the heartfelt destruction and damage over what's being done to our children in Chicago every weekend? We don't hear a peep about it. And the answer, of course, is politics. Democrats run that town, so nothing can be wrong there. Jerry, Flagler Beach, Florida. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Thank you, Rush. I wanted to tell you that this morning on Fox News, they had a forensic psychologist that actually kind of made my point that I told my wife the moment I heard about this that I bet you anything with the age of the guy, he's just an angry man who was acting out like the guy that went into the softball field after the Republican softball team, and that's exactly what this forensic psychologist said. You know, the guy, he's too old to try to make a name for himself. He had, he was a man of means. He had the money. He had a lot of time to plan it out. He picked his victims because they seemed, it appears, would be reprehensible people who needed to be taught a lesson, so to speak. Wait, hold it a minute. This is what the forensic psychologist said? Yes, this was his number one conclusion, that he's believing that this is exactly where it's going to come down to because of a variety of factors that he talked about, but that was kind of in in the short scenario of it.
So he's saying, why would these people be reprehensible, the people he shot? What about them makes them reprehensible?
Well, if he's thinking that they're the Trump supporters who, love country music, a bunch of rednecks.
Okay, so you heard a forensic psychologist on Fox today say that this was a political shooting.
He said that's where he's leaning to, that it looks the most logical aspect from his experience of dealing with why people go out and commit crimes, particularly of this type of nature. And, and it makes perfect sense to me. That was my first inclination altogether. And then you just have the segments about the news media. People have basically been pointing the same thing out. They're actually hoping that was it. Well, and it all derives down to
one person, a CBS executive, said she thought these people deserved it. The other media person of name and repute that's pointing it out is Jeff Zeleny of CNN, formerly the New York Times, and his point was that Trump is going to care more about this disaster than any others because it was his voters that were shot. I mean, that's the presumption here. I haven't heard anybody announce a theory for this, forensic psychologist or not. But you're the second guy who says he's heard somebody compare this shooting to this the lunatic that shot up Steve Scalise and the Republicans practicing baseball. I don't have any idea. There's all kinds of theories that have been espoused, brought forward to explain this, because everybody's dying to know. You can't fathom. Nobody can fathom doing this. And not a single one of us that can fathom having 40-some-odd weapons and modifying a couple of them so that they fire rapidly and then gunning down as many people as we can see out of a hotel room. We just don't do that. So what would make somebody want to do it? And I've always cautioned it is very, very risky to start analyzing irrational people from your rational point of view. Irrational people are tough to figure out if you're not a professional, because you start applying your own worldview to things. I would never do this. What would make somebody do this? And if you're not irrational to begin with, not to the degree this guy was, you're going to be flailing away and guessing. But I appreciate the call very much, Jerry. Here's Paul in Kernersville, North Carolina. You're next, sir. Welcome.
Hello, Kemosabe. I'm responding to the gentleman that called in from Vegas that was under fire during the episode yesterday.
Right. He was.
I'd just like to make the point to the listeners that our men and women in the service and our policemen, they face this type of thing every day. And it's about time this country shows more respect to these people. They come home from fighting and they're injured. They try to forget what they've seen. This young man that saw this in Vegas, he'll never forget that the rest of his life, being shot at. So that's my 2 cents, Rush.
That's actually a good point. Not only he'll never forget being shot at, he'll never forget seeing the carnage. Never got those pictures out of his mind. But, you have a really, really good point. Law enforcement and military combat people face this almost every day. And they have to find ways to get past it every day. They have to find ways to try to live normal lives every day, despite living their lives the way they do. Police officers come under fire. It happens to them. They have to find ways around it. They have to find ways to stay stable. They have to find ways to stay mentally adjusted. But look what's being said about them. Look what's being done to them. We got whole groups of people not saluting a national anthem because they think the cops are a bunch of murdering racists. So they have to put up with that, too, in addition to everything else that they have to face. And they don't make a whole lot of money. I mean, they don't have $100,000 to wire to the Philippines like Paddock apparently did before his shooting rampage in Las Vegas. They do it for reasons that go way beyond what they're paid. And they often are not, in fact, not only are they not shown respect, they're under attack frequently by political forces in this country, which are almost always from the left, attempting to impugn them and mock them. So, yeah, that's an excellent point, Paul. Let's take another break because we have to. No choice here. We'll be back and continue in a sec. And we're back. Folks, I have to share with some of you. I'm sitting here. I'm so frustrated over the things I'm not getting to. I mean, if it weren't for this, there's some literally fascinating stuff that's happening out there that I'm dying to get in and talk about. And it's just 3 hours isn't enough to get there. In trying to be thorough with this. There's stuff happening in the NFL. Trump's down in San Juan saying some incredible things. We haven't gotten nearly to the sound bites the media is reacting to and trying to link Trump to this event in any which number of ways. The national anthem controversy and secret revelations that the NFL now is fully aware of why they're losing viewers and why they're losing the attendance is down. And the factions of ownership that want to address it and want to ignore it. Richard Sherman of the Seahawks has come out attacking the fans, claiming he doesn't care and other players don't care about your fantasy team. We don't care about any of that. There's all kinds of stuff. We haven't even gotten to my Friday night appearance on Hannity to play and review that. And tomorrow's already going to be Wednesday. And I've used every amount of discipline I have to try to not dwell on one aspect of this for too long, to move on to something else and combine phone calls in it and so forth. It's just the volume of stuff that's happening. It's impossible to keep up with it in a 3-hour program. What am I to do? Well, I'll put Sherman on the yesterday stack, but the yesterday stack is bigger. Because it's 2 days, it's going to be 3 now. The yesterday stack is bigger than any one-day stack. See, if I didn't tell you this, you wouldn't even know it. The smart thing would have been not to tell you. Because, I mean, it's like if I were a DJ and never played a particular song, you would never really know it because you can't be sure. But I've gone ahead and told you here I'm not playing a couple of hits. Because it frustrates me. I mean, even if we did a 4th hour every day on the website, folks, that wouldn't be enough to get all this stuff in, I'm telling you. And if I only spent 20 minutes today on this and moved on to other things, it'd be, you don't care about what this is big. And that would be a false charge, but I would understand it. Here's Philip in Las Vegas. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Rush. Hey, I'd like to make a point that I can answer your question. Sell weapons or guns only to conservatives because they don't seem to be the ones doing the shooting. which brings me to my second point.
Wait. Who sell guns to... What? Say that again.
Only conservatives.
Only conservatives buy guns? Is that what you're saying?
If you want to make a law, only sell guns to conservatives.
You're talking about a new law. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that brings me to my second point. If the shooter was a Republican, the liberal news would have outed him the minute they identified him. That's what I believe.
I see where you're going with this. You're saying the guy probably might be a Democrat because the media isn't reporting that.
Or a Trump hater. And the only other alternative could be a false flag shooting to start trouble to take our guns away.
Yeah.
Those are two scenarios.
Yeah, let's leave that one aside. The false flag.
I know. I understand.
Okay, so you two things. Your proposed law is only sell guns to conservatives. What would that accomplish? I may not be following you here on that. What's the point of that?
Well, there's Democrats that are conservative. There's Republicans that are conservative.
Yeah,
but the last several shootings don't seem to be any conservatives. They identified them as either Muslim or Democrat
or apolitical. I got you. Okay. His whole point here is that the shooter must be something the Democrat and the media don't like. Otherwise, if the shooter were conservative and a nutcase and a lunatic, they would have pointed this out, and they haven't. Okay. I'll think about that even further. Okay, folks, I've decided there's only one way to do this. After the program tomorrow, I'm going to keep going on the Internet. Subscribers at RushLimbaugh.com will be able to hear what we call a fourth hour. No commercials. I just keep going until I'm ready to quit. It's the only reason I'm going to be able to get this stuff in there.